What's up, guys? This video is on the topic of filtration, and it's a very important subject on people who may be actually experimenting with building waste oil burners. In the beginning, I didn't filter anything. I just would dump oil into something and see if it works, but I quickly found out that that's the cause of a lot of problems and flaws in some of the designs. And we're going to talk about a couple of things today regarding some problems you're going to come across if you don't properly filter this stuff several times. For example, this is my initial filter that I dump oil straight out of my storage containers into a vessel such as this. So that's my first filtration process. I will then use this transfer pump to pump the oil through this filter here, which is a pressurized filter. And I don't use vacuum filters because pressurized filters last a lot longer. If you place an oil filter on the vacuum side of a pump, it will clog up so fast that it won't even be worth putting it on there. And one of the reasons being is that these pumps can't draw a very powerful vacuum. And let's say they could pull a maximum theoretical vacuum. That would mean you're only going to get 15 psi's of oil pressure through your filter. And experience has taught me that that's just not enough. I have clogged up inline filters like within a couple of hours on the vacuum side of pumps. And it's because a lot of the sludge that will build up and stuff like that. So this poor thing right here basically just sucks up dirty oil straight out of a container like that has been pre-filtered with something like this. But yet, irregardless of that, even after having been pumped through here, this is the final filter that is used to deliver the oil to siphon nozzles and other very temperamental waste oil burner nozzles and things like that. I'm also going to hook this up to my drip feeder possibly, I don't know yet, but you can see the dirt and stuff that's in there. And this is oil that's been filtered twice. So the contamination could be coming from several places, you know, obviously. But I'm going to bust this thing open and take a look at what's inside of here. And you're probably going to be pretty amazed. But I just wanted to touch on some of the details of filtering oil, that you don't ever want to hook an oil filter up to the intake side of an oil pump. You always want it to be pressurized. If you don't, it's gonna clog on you very quick. This has happened to me several times. I bought several of those little like lawnmower style inline clear filters. Man, them things don't last 2-3 hours before they're completely gumped up. The gump, there's this gummy, nasty goo inside of oil that gets stuck on that filter paper and requires a little bit more than 14.5 psi's to press it through that paper. So and like I said, these pumps can't draw that kind of vacuum. You'd be lucky to get 2 pounds of pressure, of vacuum drawn on this thing. So, at any rate, that's just a little suggestion if you go to build one of these. You kind of want your pump to be somewhat of just a bilge pump type thing, or a trash pump, I think that's what they call it. So that's what I do. I dump the dirty oil through this little homemade filter I have here, which has a pretty nice screen on there, into a primary container, and then I will transfer pump filter that through this here, which has several screens in it. So let's take this thing apart. Okay, so let's crack this thing open and see what is going on, because it started to clog up on me. The pump started jittering and pulsating at very high pressure, indicating a clog. And I'm just curious to see there can't be more than 40 gallons to pump through this thing. There's probably not even that much. Well, that screen there has got a little bit of sediment in it. Nothing that should have caused what I was seeing. Let's open the back end of this thing. That was okay. This is the out, or the discharge. That was the intake side. So basically what that means is all my gunk's back here. We need to back up. It's been so long since I threw this thing together, I forgot how it works. This little section right here is going to be clogged, I bet. Full of gunk. Just loaded. Full of dead beetles and cigarette butts. I doubt a cigarette butt got in there, but we might see a beetle. The pump probably sheared him up pretty good. I need to take that out. Not as bad as I thought. Definitely this hairy, gunky stuff that you see here is what will clog up little screens like this, which was inside my pump at one point, inside the transfer pump I showed you. This is some kind of hairy, fibrous material that I find in oil all the time, and it will stop these little pump screens up in their tracks. Same thing with any type of nozzle screen you may be using. Not really seeing anything significant in there. Can you see this hairy stuff here? This may be where the clog was. I'll tell you that right now. This stuff, something about it. Look at that. I see it all the time. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's fibers out of an air or out of an oil filter in the engine, maybe. Maybe some fibers are coming loose. But that got it out of there. It's just some crazy stuff. I don't get it. I'm not seeing any major cloggage like I thought that would make the thing act the way it did. It's like it didn't even want to pump oil. It was weird. But you get the point, you know. And then inside of this thing there's little tiny orifices and stuff like that, so that hairy substance just over time will clog up. But just wanted to touch base on that. If you start having problems with one of your builds and you're not filtering your oil, if you're working on a design and you're just having trouble getting it lit, I mean, these things can clog up instantly and you will not know what is going on. It'll just have you scratching your head thinking something's wrong with the design, but in reality you just have a clog somewhere. I mean, it'll also, things will be running fine and all of a sudden things start running differently on you and you can't figure out why you're messing with the fuel ratios and all this and that, and it's just because of this crap right here, because oil that has been filtered is still dirty oil. I don't know how or why, but it is just some really nasty stuff. I mean, that's gravity filtered right there. This oil's been sitting forever. Filter it with that, and then this, as I said, and even in units like this, that hairy gunk can start building up inside your drip valve. So I think what I'm going to end up doing here is what another YouTuber did. He put a sight glass on his drip, which I thought was pretty cool. And I built this thing here out of some JB Weld, and I'm going to kind of imitate his idea on that so I can see the drip. That way if I do get a clog, it's notable. So you would want the valve on top of that for a drip feed. But so far, guys, out of all my experience in waste oil burners, I gotta say that this is probably one of the easier ways to go. I mean, the reason why I'm holding back and saying that is because ever since I built this thing with this specific nozzle, it is pretty much the easiest by far. Man, I'm just making one heck of a mess. I'm gonna have to get the dimensions wrote down. A lot of people have been asking me about the dimensions and stuff. In the video when I built this, I did kind of write that down. I thought maybe I didn't. They're asking me as if I didn't, or they're just not watching all the video. I can't remember if I did. I'll check. But this nozzle is a siphon nozzle that just uses air. It does not have pressurized oil. It causes its own vacuum, but it's very susceptible to clogs, and you have to keep the stuff filtered. And when I was making this thing and first testing it, I come across a lot of problems. So just a little note, side note, something to keep in mind that as a beginner, I never really bothered with. Man, killing my steam coil. So just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're out cruising for information and you're having problems or you don't want to run into them, this is definitely something you need to consider. Oil filtration is a big deal when it comes to keeping these things running. Another fellow YouTuber by the name of 24/7 provided some extremely insightful information, and I thank him for this. Comments like this from viewers are worth their weight in gold. And one of the interesting things he pointed out was about this inline heater I built was about varnish buildup. And I have been aware of varnish buildup for years. And I even have a video where I take apart a vaporizer coil to show the varnish inside of it. But he pointed out something about varnish that never dawned on me. And that is that after it builds up, it eventually flakes off and then it ends up in your nozzles downstream. So another thing to think of as far as filtering goes, you definitely want to have a filter on the other end of any type of preheating system as well, because if you're getting any type of varnishing, that's going to be an issue. He recommended I not go over 180 degrees because from his comments are leading me to believe that the temperature is increases used to alter the viscosity. They're not trying to vaporize the oil per se. They just need the viscosity to be brought within the specifications required by the nozzle geometry, because it won't work right if it's too thick. The geometry has to change to atomize thicker oil. So that's where we are with this. I just wanted to point out and thank that gentleman for his comment and insight, because it never dawned on me the fact that putting the filter where I typically have it is not going to do me any good on this thing if I get some varnish buildup. And even if I do only produce 180 degree oil, does not mean varnish won't build up in here. That does not mean this element won't have to hit 500 degrees to give me that 180 degree oil. So his comment definitely inspired me to be sure that I place a filter downstream from the heater, but certainly not this one, seeing as how it's made of plastic. I'll probably end up purchasing a power steering inline filter. They're little tiny, they're about this big, and they're all aluminum, and they have a stainless steel screen inside of them. They're about 14 bucks, similar to something like this, but smaller, with no plastic components, because power steering fluid can get quite hot. But that's where we are. Not a very interesting video for most, but if you're actually going to build a waste oil burner, this is information you're going to want to know. You don't want to learn it the way I did. It can really cause a lot of problems if you go building an awesome waste oil burner that works just fine, unless we ask you who clogged it up and it wouldn't work, which is what happened to me. I mean, this thing almost doesn't exist because of clogs, and it wasn't discovered until after I tore it apart. So fellas, just to boil this video down for you real quick and crystallize the most important information, the things you should know about filtering oil is, first of all, if you have a pressurized oil system, you definitely want to make sure the oil filter is connected to the discharge of your oil pump. Oil pumps can't create a very big vacuum, and even if you had one that could create a 30-inch mercury vacuum, you're still only getting 14.5 psi's of oil pressure on the intake of the oil filter. So you'll want to make sure you hook your oil filters up on the pressurized size, because of some things you'll see in this video that'll explain that. The other thing is that just filtering your oil twice is something you're going to probably want to do. I have found that sometimes once just isn't good enough. even though all that stuff got trapped, we still end up with contamination that can clog. Look at all that in there. Your nozzles. And this will make you think that things are broke when they're not. You'll think you have a bad design. It's gonna just waste your time. Another thing that a fellow YouTuber 24/7 pointed out is that varnish buildup in preheaters can flake off and end up downstream. And I never even considered the concept of placing a filter downstream of this inline heater. I am gonna take his advice and keep this thing down to the 180-degree area. That doesn't mean the heating coil won't reach 500 degrees to give us that 180 degrees. So varnishing may still be a possibility, and we would want to hook a filter up downstream from this preheater. And that is basically what this video is going to touch on, because in the beginning, when I didn't filter my oil, I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time not being able to get things work, only later to find out it was because of clogs. Completely quit using this pump on a build because I thought it wasn't going to work. Come to find out it would work, but the screens were clogged up within 20 minutes using filtered oil from a hairy, fibrous filtered paper substance that is an all waste oil. So there you have it, guys. Nothing real exciting, but definitely very important stuff.